Alright, so have you ever played Master Duel, saw an end board, and just said, you know what, I think I'm good? And you scoop? Well, that's what this deck puts out. End boards that makes people say, you know what, I think I'm good. I don't think I think I'll just take the loss. I won't even attempt to break the board. So here we go. Basically, I start off playing some armed dragons, of course, and a lot of people don't expect this since you can't really do the infinite combo anymore, or the infinite negate combo anymore, I should say. Um, so I go ahead and go into Galaxy Tomahawk. People think, what is the end board really going to be since Union Carrier is now banned? Well, let me show you. So I go Artifact Dagda, and this is super consistent. Once you get to this portion of the combo with Dagda, all you need is just one card in hand to discard. Literally, you can pretty much scythe lock your opponent. So I go Barricade Board Blocker, and then that will trigger. It's a machine as well. That's important for this combo. It'll trigger an effect even if it doesn't have a card that it's going to get. It does not matter. It'll trigger regardless, allowing for you to set your scythe. Then we'll make another Link Spider because you need a effect monster to go into Predator Plan Verde Anaconda. So then we go these two into none other than Aurora Dun. Everybody thought the Aurora Dun lines were done because of the ban of Hockey Firebrax. I told you they should have banned Aurora Dun, not Hockey Firebrax. Then here we go. So we're going to go into Cupid Pitch. Cupid Pitch is going to be very important for adding a very specific card with its effect, and it will be chain block, by the way. So we go Borlo Savage Dragon right here. Activate its effects, giving it 3 counters, meaning once per turn for 3 turns we can get an Omni Negate. That grabs us Nemesis Corridor. We searched Nemesis Corridor in Archetype. This is crazy. Go into Thunder Dragon Colossus, summon that onto the field, also unbanishing a card while doing so. Then going into DPE, and that's our inboard. So what do we have here? Let's take a look at our inboard completely. So we have Borlo Savage Dragon, 3 Omni Negates, once per turn each. Monsters that your opponent control cannot search cards. They have to either just draw them or summon them straight to the field or whatever, but they cannot add cards to their hand except for by drawing them. So can't draw. We also have DPE, pop a card. Of course, this card's usage is already pretty much done for, so we don't even need this card anymore, but it doesn't matter, whatever. So then we also have Artifact Scythe, which means your opponent cannot use the extra deck. We will be popping the Scythe. And we also have Max C. So if they try to interact with this, we can Omni Negate that and Max C them. So let's see what happens. It's already a hard to play through board. They want no part of it. They just say, you know what? I think I'm done. I think I'm good. But that's not it. Let's take a look at the first match that I played doing this. They didn't even let me finish, and I actually misplayed, but the misplay is like a non-important misplay. I literally just accidentally clicked the button not to add a very specific card, and I'll explain where that actually happens at. There's an effect that's supposed to go off, but it doesn't go off, but it does not matter. It does not affect the inboard whatsoever. All it affects is just the cards in my hand. So right here I go artillery catapult turtle, and then I pitch the other artillery catapult. Right here I activate the effect of armed dragon, pile armed dragon, and it was supposed to activate an effect there to grab a monster and put it to my hand, but I accidentally right clicked. My mouse is very sensitive. I accidentally right clicked and it canceled the effect. So then, just doing the same exact play that I was doing before, and this opponent did not care what the inboard was going to look like. He did not want to stick around. I think he already had an idea, and he was just like, yeah, I think I'm out. So Predator Plan Verde Anaconda, same exact combo. All the combo is done in extra deck, so all the extra deck cards are there to pretty much do this combo very consistently. The only thing that you have to worry about when playing this deck is how do I get my level 7s out. That's the only thing you have to worry about, is how do I get out my level 7s. Well, then also if you draw into two very specific cards, in which I'll show you guys my deck that I'm playing. And as a matter of fact, I didn't get a chance to see what deck either of my opponents were playing. Branded Despia 100% was going to need his extra deck. Scythe would have definitely hurt him there. And in this particular deck, yep, 100% would have needed his extra deck. He is doing a lot of extra deck summoning with this. This is a deck that heavily relies on this extra deck. And because he has this card, I do not feel sorry for him. He likes to evilly lock people. So let's take a look at the deck that I'm playing. So this is the deck that I'm currently playing. There are some cards in here that could be better, that I would recommend over what I currently have. So let me show you what that deck would look like if you were to add the cards that I'm referring to. So I would add one more of this card. Of course, I do not have it. I could craft it right now if I wanted to, make that exactly what I need it to be. Then there are some more cards. Let me show you. I would add 3 of those cards there, and also this card. And then some of the other cards in this deck, preferably I would remove out this particular card, and then just 2 of something else. So I put 2 of these in case I draw into one, it doesn't brick the combo. If I draw into both of them, the combo is absolutely bricked. You cannot pull off the same type of combo. You can still combo off to some degree, but not the same type of way. And then I would also probably remove maybe 1 Maxi and 1 Ash, or maybe 2 Maxis I would remove, because you really don't need them in this combo. But the rest of the cards, or actually, you know what? You could take out White Veil, one of the White Veils, and this card really is unnecessary. I have White Veil in the deck. This card searches White Veil, which is why I have it in here. So if you wanted to take this out, by all means, you can take this one out. So this will be a more consistent version of that deck that I was just playing. So if you can craft this card, if you can craft this one, and then these, I would 100% go that route. This particular deck like this plays a whole lot better because you can turbo out those level 7s much easier, especially if you draw into one of these and one of these. Both of them lead to these 2 cards. Those are both level 7s. They can resummon themselves onto the field after they leave the field, so you can then use them again to trigger off your artifact scythe if you wanted to do so. Also, or to trigger off Dagda, I mean. Also, that means if you don't have a card in hand to discard off of the barricade board blocker, you do not have to do that. And if you wanted to add some more cards in here, like if you wanted to add in maybe some level 1 tuners or whatnot, or some level 2 tuners, and just normal summon those out, or try to figure some other way. I mean, I tried different combinations, and these 2 were the best combinations that I could come up with for the inboards, for consistency in the inboards as well. But I did try Jet Sync Run and a couple other synchro plays, and ultimately the best inboard that I came up with was the inboard that you guys saw. There were some other inboards that were pretty formidable as well, but they just did not end with different type, that like they were mostly just multiple Omni negates. Like I had the Omni negate that used this particular Yang Zing. So I was ending with a 9 pillars negate. I had a 9 pillars, but I didn't have the Thunder Dragon Colossus, which I would think that, in my opinion, having this none ability to add cards to your hand could be just as important as having an Omni negate. That Omni negate can stop one play, but this card can stop a ton of plays. There's just nothing they can do as far as adding. And there's decks like Sprite. This destroys sprites. They can't add cards to their hand. Sprite adds a ton of cards to their hand. So this is brutal and devastating. Of course, the combos with Sprite can start off without needing to add cards to the hand, but not being able to add in specific cards that they need completely screws up their deck. So this is devastating. Blue and Jet both add to the hand to get their combos going. So being able to just put this out, devastating for your opponents, hard for them to get over this. Of course, they can banish it, but there are other things that we do still have in the deck in this particular inboard, the Omni Negate. So if you see they're playing Sprite, wait till they try to activate Smashers. Smashers is the only thing that can really go like get over this board is if they have Smashers, but then at that point they would have to have a monster in the graveyard that's a Sprite card or whatever. Plus they would have to have a monster on the field, so you would know that they're working up to a Smashers. So then you could just negate that and they still can't break the board, and it'll be in the graveyard. So what could they possibly do after that? Then being able to scythe lock them, that's another big part of it. Scythe locking your opponents. Most decks cannot play through a scythe lock. So all of that, super devastating. The way that this deck works, if you guys have never saw Armed Dragon, is basically a discard to summon. Discard to summon, and then they all pretty much have graveyard effects or some kind of on-field effect. So I'll kind of quickly go through some of the main engine pieces. So this card right here, you discard this card plus one card in your hand that is a dragon type or a fire monster. Pretty much all this deck is dragon type. So anything you discard is dragon. So you're going to discard one dragon in your hand plus discard, and it will summon out Blaster. And then with this one, same thing, but it's a little different. One wind, one dragon. You discard. Just be careful not to discard your Nemesis Corridor. Sometimes it can come up, so if you want to run two of these, you can. That way, just in case, if all you have is these two cards in hand and you need to get Tempest onto the field, which you still won't have a way to extend, but if you have just these two cards, at least you can get Tempest out, and then you could also use this card to get its effect off later if you can find a way to banish something to unbanish it with this and then go into Colossus. Of course, this one is a scythe for the scythe lock. Level 3, this one is the only one that you can just normal summon onto the field, and then you can start activating it. Every time you discard, you level up basically. So you go level 3, 5, 7, 10. That's how the deck kind of functions, but this one goes into level 5, and then if this card is discarded from the hand by one of those effects, to trigger one of those effects, what you can do is draw one card. So that's the discard effect for this one. Then the discard effect for 5, this one is one of the more important discards. You always want to add something very specific with this one when you use its discard effect, but when you send this one, of course, you can level up to 7, and when this one is sent, you can add one level 5 or higher wind dragon monster from your deck to your hand. The card that you would want to add off of this particular one would be Tempest, if you can, and then you would summon off what you would of course level up, but you would add Tempest to your hand. So let's say if you're starting with level 3 and you have a level 5 in hand, you summon level 3, discard the level 5. Level 5 will add you Tempest to your hand. And then, of course, your 3 would add a 5 onto the field. Then you would go level 5, pitch the Tempest that you just got because it can activate in the graveyard. And I'll explain all of that too. And once you add Tempest, you discard it to the graveyard, you basically level up one more time, putting a level 7 onto the field, and then activating your Tempest. Once you activate your Tempest, it'll banish 2 cards, summon itself back onto the field. Now you got your 2 level 7s. So that's how that one will work. So you would always add Tempest. If you already have Tempest in hand, then I would add Pile Armed Dragon, this card here, and I'll explain that one in a second. Then you also have your Tempest and Dragon Ruler, which are the two that I kind of explained. They both work the same exact way, just using different monsters. So this one is 2 fire or dragon monsters, and then this one is wind or dragon monsters. So they're both the same thing. They're the dragon rulers, right? Then you have your arm dragon level 7. Now me, what I usually do is I use arm dragon level 7 when this one is sent to grab this card, Arm Dragon Flash. I usually search out Flash with this one. Now you can search something different, but you get two searches with this card. You basically get two searches with Pile Arm Drag or Arm Dragon level 7. I'm sorry, no, I said that wrong. With level 7, you summon it out and you can level up, go to 10. You don't want to really do that with this particular deck because you want 7 on the field. If you send this one to the graveyard, what you want to do is you search for Flash. Now the one that you get two searches on, or you get the chance to search twice in one summon, is with Pile Arm Dragon. Now if you send a monster, if you have this card in hand, this is the best like starter that you can really have, as long as you have a armed dragon monster in hand as well. Preferably 5 or 7 in hand plus Pile Arm Dragon, because then you get both searches that you kind of need. So you basically activate this card in hand, it'll send one of your dragons, preferably 5 or 7, and then you can basically use it to search the card that I referred to, and then you can on field send the other one to the graveyard from your deck and then activate that effect too. So basically you can get a 5 search for Tempest and you can get a search for Arm Dragon Flash. So it works really well. That's what I ultimately like about Pile Arm Dragon, one of the better starters, and it boosts its attack. So if you wanted to attack, clear some stuff off your opponent's board if you're going second first, of course you can only attack once with this card once you activate that effect, but if you wanted to do that, you can. Also, you can run 3 Dark Ruler No More in this particular deck. I used to run Dark Ruler No More in here, which it actually works really well. Putting up 3 Dark Ruler No Mores in this deck, and then committing to all of this, and then putting up this crazy inboard that's hard for your opponents to play through. You'll be able to pretty much break their board with ease, pop everything on the field before their turn, and then they have to rebuild their board up. You can absolutely do that too. Of course, I just don't have all of that in the deck as of right now. I just started kind of playing this because I had originally kind of kicked this deck to the side once Union Carrier got banned, but then I started having ideas, so I wanted to add all this in. This card right here can basically banish 2 dragons from your graveyard to summon this from your hand or graveyard. That's important to know. This is really good for just breaking your opponent's board. Sometimes when they have an in board set up in turn 2, this card plus the white, if you kept the white in the deck, can kind of break through your opponent's boards, which is why I like having white plus White Veil. White Veil had its own effect, and I'll put that card back up so you can see. That way you can understand why I kept that card particularly, and why sometimes even going second, that could be a board breaker to just OTK your opponents. So Dragoonity right here has its own effect. You can target one face-up monster. Its effects are negated. It loses 1,000 attack for each equipped card you control. When your opponent's monster is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can equip it to this card. So this card can basically attack an opponent's monster, equip that monster to this card, lower the attack of something else on their field, making it easier for you to beat over other cards that they have. So pretty good card right here. Then we got Arm Dragon Thunder level 10. Now this card has a ton of effects. So if this card was special summoned by the effect of an Armed Dragon monster, it gains the following ability based on its attack. This card's attack can change as well. So it becomes Armed Dragon level 10. You cannot, the control of it can't be switched if it has more than 10 attack. Of course, the attack of this card starts off at 3,000 anyways. So basically, when you get it on the field, it already starts off this. Can't switch the attack, cannot be destroyed by battle. Once per turn, once per opponent's turn, I mean, you could send one card from your hand to the graveyard and then target one other card on the field, destroy it, and if you do, this card gains 1,000 attack. That doesn't go away; it stays on the card. So basically, it'll be 4,000 attack once you pop something on the field, and then if you keep this card on the field long enough, you keep going up on its attack. Basically, then you can get to this effect right here. Once per turn, you can destroy all other cards on the field. Basically, wipe the entire board. And this card will be the only card on the field. Plus, it'll have 10,000 attack, which means you win the game. If you get to this point. Now, there are other cards that facilitate this that I used to run in the deck that I probably should put back into this deck, and I may do it. I just wanted to basically, I don't know, I'll play around with it. As of right now, people quit as soon as you get the end board up, so it doesn't really matter. Of course, we just got one Fusion Destiny because we're summoning it off of the Predator Plant Verde Anaconda. So if you draw into this card, you don't even have to go into the Anaconda anyways. So you can make other plays if you wanted to. Instead of going into this particular card, if you draw this card in hand, what I would argue is to go into IP Masquerena in the place of this card, and then on your opponent's turn, you can basically make an Appaloosa Bow to God, or you could spin something back with Predator Plant. With Nightmare Unicorn. So, yeah, that's another play that you can make. Unicorn will probably be more sensible, since when your opponent, you're going to have Sight on the field, and you really don't want to get rid of your Borlo Savage Dragon. You also really don't want to get rid of your own Colossus or your DPE, because basically you lose the effect of all of those by doing so. So it would make more sense to actually do that instead. There are some circumstances where you may still have a token left onto the field where you don't have to use up those monsters or whatnot, but yeah. So there are other plays that you can make. So, all right, let's see, what else do we got? Oh yeah, I explained that. So Armed Dragon Flash is basically just special summon a level 3 Armed Dragon. You can just quickly summon one out. It's basically like emergency teleport for this particular deck. Sometimes this can be useful for triggering your Dagda. If you can't trigger Dagda in any other way, you can trigger Dagda really quickly with this. Also, this can be a good way to actually put up another target for your IP Masquerena. So that way, when you go into IP Masquerena and you activate its effect, you can basically use that extra body to go into Appaloosa. And most of the time, pretty much every time you do your combo, you're almost always going to search this card, unless you just get your level 7s out so quickly that you don't even discard a level 7. But most of the time you do. So then our extra deck, of course, we got Colossus, DPE, Cupid, Pitch. The reason this card works in searching, and it searches it perfectly, because level 600, you can add one level 8 or lower monster with 600 defense from your deck. This card just so happens to have that exact number, 600 defense, which is why you're able to search this card out. Then we also got your Artifact Scythe right here to Scythe lock your opponents. Searchable off of Dagda, of course. Galaxy Tomahawk. You always put this into your extra monster zone, so then that way you can get the maximum amount of value. It summons out basically as many tokens as possible, so always put this in your extra monster zone. If you don't, you might screw up the combo, unless you have this card, of course, as an extender, but most of the time you want to make sure that that's in your extra monster zone. If this card gets negated, your whole combo kind of fizzles. Sometimes it does happen. People will wait for this card. They know it's coming, especially if they see this deck. That's the only weakness to this deck, really, is just people know about the combo. They know you're going into Galaxy Tomahawk when they see the 2 level 7s hit the field. So a lot of the times they'll just hold imperm for this particular card, and then they'll just imperm it when you go to use the effect. So there are some hand traps that can deal with imperm. I might make a whole separate video talking about some of those cards, but there's a monster that they've put in the game that can deal with imperm, and it's a hand trap, and I think it's really amazing, really good card. It deals with it, and I think that I may make a video talking about it. Then we got our Borlo Savage Dragon. You can equip a link monster to this to put Boro counters on it, which are basically Omni negate counters. So anytime an opponent activates an effect, you can basically negate that activation. So yeah. Then we have our link spiders, just to turn our normal monsters into effect monsters. That's the only point of really having these. And yes, you do need two. If you saw in the replay, I actually used both of them. Then IP Masquerena, of course. Barricade Board Blocker. I think this one's the best of the Link 2 machine monsters that you can use, because you can trigger this effect without anything, just discarding a card, and you can also still use it as link material. The other cards have good effects that may be better, but you can't use them as link material, meaning you can't use this to go into Aurora Dun. This removes 2 tokens off the field as well and goes into this one card, so that also makes space if you need to make other plays before you commit to this card right here. That's one of the main reasons I wanted to put this one in the deck as well. Of course, Dagda, we already know about that, and Predator Plant Verde Anaconda. This card needs to be on the field before you go into this card. If you do go into this card before this card, basically what will happen is you'll lock yourself out of being able to actually link, because once this card activates, you can't link anymore. You get your spin back with this one. Of course, you should know what Anaconda does by now. You should know about this card. If you're new to Master Duel and you were playing this after Hawkeye Firebrax ban, basically this card puts out 3 tokens, and then it has 3 different effects depending on how many tokens you tribute. 1, you can pop a card on the field. 2, you can special summon a Mecha Phantom Beast card. 3, you can add 1 trap from your graveyard to the hand. So this second effect is the one that you're wanting to go with, because that second effect, what it does is it allows you to summon this card out from your deck, which is why I have 2. It has to be from the deck. Now, you don't want to activate this card's effect on the field, because if you do, you will lock yourself into win monsters. So don't activate that card's effect on the field. Just use it as a level 1 tuner. That's all you're doing. The original combo used to be before you would go into this, you would Hawkeye Firebrax, summon Despot 001 onto the field, use those 2 to go into Aurora Dun, and then you would pop off. You would be getting a ton of tokens, plus your tuner that keeps coming back every time you summon out 2 tokens. So that made it to where you could pop off, you could get much bigger, better bodies onto the field, and you can do some craziness with literally the Hawkeye Firebrax plus Aurora Dun. Now, myself personally, I don't think Hawkeye Firebrax was the problem. I think that Aurora Dun was more so the problem in those particular combos, but I do think that Hawkeye Firebrax just made so many decks so good, regardless of it using the Hawkeye Firebrax combos, which is why I think they banned it. But I don't think that those other decks that Hawkeye Firebrax played in were kind of toxic. But I think it just opened too much opportunity to make too many different plays, and they were just like, we'll just cut it off at the Hawk, which is why they probably banned it. And then, of course, Appaloosa, you all should know about that, and the access code Talker. So the cards that I was referring to that I said that I would get into, that I'll show, I'll just go to related right here. So if you're trying to do the boost attack with this card is the card that helps with that. Armed Dragon Lightning. What it does is it basically gives you the ability to boost the attack. So it gains attack equal to the level times 100. even when this card leaves the field. So if an armed dragon monster you control will be destroyed by card effects, you can send this card to the graveyard instead. That's one of the effects. And then you can target one armed dragon monster you control, then activate one of these effects. It gains attack equal to the level times 100 even when this card leaves the field. So that means that you can continuously each turn just keep boosting the attack with this card, making it easier for you to be able to activate that effect. So basically this card would just keep gaining attack using its own effect plus this card continuously getting it closer and closer to that 10,000 range, and then being able to just do a complete field wipe. The other effect is to add one armed dragon monster with equal or lower level from from your graveyard to your hand. That does happen quite consistently because as you're discarding these monsters, your monsters are leveling up. So you got your monsters leveling up and your pitching cards leveling up, pitching cards. So eventually you will have one lower level than the ones that you're pitching off, basically. That'll allow you to add one card back to your hand. I did used to have this in my deck. I may actually put it back in because this card is actually pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. It's actually pretty good. It's very useful, especially when you run out of discard targets and you need cards to discard, because it does happen where sometimes you just don't have enough monsters to discard, and as you're discarding, it'll basically put those back into your hand. And the lower level you get as far as those discard targets, they actually help as well, because level 3 draws a card, so that could potentially unbrick your hand and help you as well. Then let's talk about Armed Dragon White and White Veil. So Armed Dragon White, this card right here must be special summoned by its own effects. Basically, when you summon this card, when you special summon this card, you can add a White Veil to your hand, and then once per turn, you take no effect damage at the start of the damage step. If this card attacks, you can destroy one card on the field. Now, the reason why adding White Veil is so good, and then this the pop one really is not as important, but the effect of this card to be able to add White Veil, which y'all saw I had White Veil in my deck other than this one, but I'm just showing you this is a more consistent version to do what I was doing. But White Veil has a nice effect that I like, where basically it stops your opponent from being able to do something very particular that people like to do, especially with trap decks. While this while the equipped monster battles, your opponent cannot activate any spells or traps until the end of the damage step. So that means they cannot, if you go straight into attack, into battle phase or whatnot, you equip this card onto something that's hard for them to destroy. And basically, like, if you equip this to something like, let's say you equip it to this card, and then on top of that you protect it with this card. If it will be destroyed, you can send this card to the graveyard instead. If you got both of those on the field, basically you can protect this card for a turn or so, and then every time you go to attack, it's gonna beat over everything anyways. White Veil basically beat over everything. They can't flip any spells or traps during that battle phase. When an attack is declared involving the equipped monster, face-up spell and traps your opponent have, their effects are negated until the end of the damage step. So if they have something flipped up, it negates those effects. So if they flip a skill drain, it negates those effects during that battle phase. So now you get all your effects back. When the equipped monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, here's the nice part to this. You can destroy all spell and trap cards your opponent controls. That's where this card becomes insane. If they're playing Labyrinth, if they're playing some skill drains and all kind of stuff, this clears all of that out. This is the beauty to this one card right here. Might not seem like a crazy effect. You have to get to the battle step to do this, but you literally just have to attack something. You clear all their spells and traps out, and then you can put up a crazy inboard with this deck anyways. And then it's just devastating for your opponents. They can't really deal with anything after that. So when this face-up card is in the spell or trap zone, leaves the field, that player takes 3,000 damage. So you do take a big hit for this card. So they punish you if this card leaves the spell and trap zone. But more than likely it won't, because your inboard will be so powerful it'll be hard for them to do anything about this. But when it does leave the field, and it does happen, you will take 3,000 damage. So run this at your own demise. But there are a lot of cards in this particular deck that kind of work with your armed dragons. So there are some different archetypes for that. But the main ones are those. I know this deck does have a target one armed dragon you control, take control of one monster with the same name. Take one monster with the same name from your deck, add it to your hand, or special summon it. So there are other cards in archetype that can do some pretty cool things that I just don't run. Blitz is a pretty good card, I just don't use it. And then the trap card is a pretty cool card as well. I just don't use this one either. Basically, target one armed dragon monster you control. It gains 1,000 attack for each armed dragon monster in your graveyard within equal or lower level than it, with different names from each other. Also, for the rest of this turn, your opponent takes no battle damage. So what that means is this card can also boost the attack of your armed dragon thunder level 10. So if you want to play that style as well, you could also do that, and you can pretty much like just clear your opponent's field. So it just OTK, attack for game, GG's, sorry. It's just basically it's just a way to do that effect quickly. Now there are some other armed dragon thunder cards that you may see here, and I do want to take the time to kind of explain some of those cards, because if I don't, then you may make the mistake of thinking that they're good or putting them in the deck and then thinking that you'll get the effects to work the same way. They don't work the same way. Make sure that the card says thunder at the end of it. The only ones that don't say thunder at the end of it is Pile Armed Dragon. But the rest of them all are thunder unless it says white. White is good too. But the original armed dragons, they basically got an upgrade. It's basically like how they kind of made an upgrade to all the other monsters to keep them in the meta, because the original armed dragons had terrible effects. So this one here, when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can special summon one level 5 or lower wind monster from your deck to your hand, which means you have to summon this card and attack, going second or going third possibly. So you have to go first, set this card, hope they don't destroy, then your next turn try to use it on third turn, or maybe even wait until third turn, just try to set up some crazy board. So this one, not so good, right? It only has 1900 attack, so you don't want to be attacking with that anyways. The original Armed Dragon level 3. During your standby phase, you can send this card to the graveyard to special summon one Armed Dragon level 5 from your hand or deck. Which means that if you don't open Armed Dragon Flash and turbo this card out before the standby phase, or during the standby phase, if you don't open this card, basically it's worthless for you, right? So you would have to summon this card out, hope it survives an entire turn, and then try to summon. So don't play this card. It sucks. And of course, I know y'all thinking, why do you even have it crafted? I have a lot of stuff crafted. Every normal monster in this game, just about, I have crafted. That's why all the normal cards that you'll see, pretty much all crafted. Because I just got bored of seeing these just so high and just seeing a bunch of normals. I just took the time to just uncraft, open up a lot of cards. That's how I find out about all these broken combo lines, cards, all of that stuff. Because if I have the ability to craft, if it's a normal or rare, I just craft it and I read all the cards, and I just took the time to just read as many cards as possible and craft as many cards as possible. I craft 3 of them if I can and just move to the next, right? So I have a lot of cards crafted. I know a lot of people aren't going to do that, but I do. That's why even these like really crappy cards, I still have them crafted, just because. Why not? All right, so then let's look at Armed Dragon level 5, the original, right? You can send one monster from your hand to the graveyard, then target one monster your opponent's control with attack less than or equal to. So this is another going second card, right? This effect, if this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle this turn, you can send this card to the graveyard, special summon one level 7 from your hand or deck. It's another effect, and this is during the end phase. Meaning that here's the funny thing, right? So this is why this is so bad. If you're going from 3 to 5, that means that you have to summon 3, wait until the next turn to go into 5. Then summon 5, attack with 5, wait until the end phase to go into 7. Where's 7? Here it is, to go into 7. Then cannot be normal summon or set, must be special summoned by Armed Dragon level 5. You can send one monster from your hand to the graveyard, destroy all monsters your opponents control with the attack less than or equal to the sent monster's attack. By this turn, they probably attack way higher than whatever you're sending anyways. So at that point, it doesn't even matter. You're not going to be able to really get this effect off. And if you manage to get to level 7, by this point, then your opponent probably bricked like crazy. You should have been won a duel already, more than likely, from just whatever other plays that you have. But if not, and you're actually playing this out this way, let's look at the next level in these cards. Armed Dragon level 10 must be special summoned from your hand by attributing one Armed Dragon level 7. So more than likely, if 7 hits the field, then you're not even using the effect of 7 anyways. You're immediately going into this if you can, because it has more attack. And let's see what this card's effect is. You can send one card from your hand to the graveyard to destroy all face-up monsters your opponents control. If you can get to this card, then this is the card that you would want to use in that particular build. Now, the good thing about this particular card and this particular effect is, let's look at Armed Dragon level 7 right here. This card's name becomes Armed Dragon level 7 while on the field or in the graveyard, which means you can actually run this card in the deck and then tribute that level 7 and then send one card from your hand to destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. So you can use this in the deck, wipe the field, and put it in this deck, and it'll work just fine. But to run the original cards, that's why they gave these an upgrade. Now, if you wanted to put this in the deck, it does work, so you can. But I would argue this one's probably better. This one destroys all other cards on the field. It has a better effect right away. Basically doing it like this, because you're just wiping all their monsters. Possibly better. If you get this plus the white on the field, you can literally just keep wiping their field, and this isn't once per turn. You can do this multiple times. As long as you got a card to send from your hand, you can just keep sending, keep wiping the field. They keep putting monsters out, you just keep wiping the field. There's no once per turn on this. So, hey, this could be possibly pretty powerful. And then if you equip White Veil to this too, hey, you put some protection up, you might be able to just, this might be a pretty powerful card. I don't care to use it and play that way. I'd rather put up a crazy inboard that's hard for them to play through, rather than try to hard draw this card and then whatever. But yeah, you don't even have to hard draw it. You could search it. You could search it off level 7. And that's a cool thing about all the other cards. You could search them all off level 7. All the other armed dragons pretty much. So yeah. I know I've been talking for a very long time. There's a lot of cards that I've shown off. If you're still here, I appreciate you. But I did want to explain in full detail how all of these cards can kind of work. How my deck is set up. How it could be better. If you wanted to possibly take one of these out, put this card in. This card can help you unbrick sometimes. If you also wanted to add the Armed Dragon white into the deck, You could also do that. You could take White Veil, put it in, and also, where is it at? The white, put that into the deck as well, and then potentially just take out like that. That's a perfect good deck that'll work. You get the maximum amount of consistency. Maybe I would run more Ash and less Maxi. You don't really need Maxi as much. But this will boost the consistency of your deck tremendously, and it'll give you ability to place first and second. This could be the way to go, if I'm being honest with you. This could be the best way to possibly play this deck. So if you choose to play this, this might be the best variation of the deck that I can think of. If you do want that extra 2 Maxis, which Maxi isn't the best idea to actually activate Maxi, because if your opponents pop off, if they pop off and you have a way to clear their field, which if they pop off, you can pop off for sure. Maxi benefits this deck heavily, but if you draw both of these cards, just know that drawing these 2 cards, you can't really do the Auroradine stuff because these have to be in your deck. But if you just so happen to pop off after they activate Maxi and they pop off, all of these cards can discard to add, discard to summon, and all kind of stuff. So you can fill your board up in no time off of just a few summons. You're putting out boss monsters right away pretty much with this deck. There's no having to try to get to your boss monster. If you got it in hand, it can pretty much hit the field. As long as you're starting off with like Pile Arm Dragon, there are so many different combo lines. And if you wanted to boost the consistency of this deck even further than this, that original turtle that I had, let's say if this is too bricky for you too, Artillery Catapult Turtle, put this to 3. There you go. This is the most consistent I think this deck could ever really get. Basically everything here is pretty much full combo. Like this is almost impossible to brick with, if I'm being honest. You got all of these right here that'll lead to these 2 cards. So that's one of the lines there. You got all of these that leads to leveling up. These all lead to leveling up. These lead to leveling up. These lead to just Pile Arm Dragon pretty much just puts your board out that you need right away. These all put a level 5 on the field. So you just normal this. Is basically like leveling up, but instead of using your 3 to do it, this jumps off the field and just goes straight into your next card. So sometimes, if I'm being honest, sometimes summoning this card onto the field, just normally getting it onto the field, your opponents will think this is the only card. They will waste their ash on this, not realizing that a lot of the other cards like Pile Arm Dragon, or even your dragon, the cards that gets to your dragon rulers, can basically be free. You get them cards onto the field for free, basically. Not free because there is a discard in it, but there's advantage that happens as you use those discard effects. So it's crazy how this deck plays. In case y'all want to see some of this in action and what I'm referring to, let's go to solo mode for a second. Doesn't really matter what I play, but I'll just go to solo mode. And we'll go to Armed Dragon Thunders. Alright, so like I said, always super consistent. You're always pretty much going to have some kind of starter in your hand because there's a lot of starters in this deck, which is why I run the Catapult Turtles. Now, if I had more of the Dragon Ruler cards, it'd be much easier to make these plays, but I don't. So once I get them unlocked, I may use them in this deck as well, but we'll see. I have a strong feeling some of this stuff is going to get banned because once enough of these videos come out, people will start doing it. So artillery catapult turtle, we're going to tribute this. This will summon out level 5. Always go from the deck so that way you don't lose advantage, because sometimes you need these to pitch from your hand. I'm going to activate 5, and then with this one we can discard either of the two. I'm going to go level 5 right here. Doesn't really matter. Level 5 will special summon out the Pile Armed Dragon. So that's what we'll go into. Instead of going into level 7, we'll go into Pile Armed Dragon. There's a reason why I go Pile Armed Dragon over level 7. I'm going to go level 5 right here, activate. And then that'll grab the Tempest, right? Which is exactly what I was talking about. Then we're going to activate this and send a level 7. It's going to boost this attack, and then we're going to activate the level 7 in the grave. And then from there we can add the flash. So that's everything that I said before. Everything that I said before, that's what we just did, right? So then we can activate Tempest. Summon this card from your hand. The other effect is to add one card from your hand to your deck. But we're not going to do that. We're going to special summon. Once we do that, we're going to banish, let's banish level 7 and a level 5. Special summon this card onto the field. Then we're going to go into Galaxy Tomahawk. Activate Galaxy Tomahawk. And then that'll basically put our tokens onto the field. So then I'm going to go to special summon, and I like to go Dagda first. I like that to be the first thing that I do is Dagda. Now if I wanted to, I could activate Flash 100%, could activate Flash right here, and I could basically go IP Masquerade and make a bunch of different plays. That would automatically activate the Dagda, so I wouldn't have to discard something to trigger that effect. But I do have that option there. Also, since I have level 7 in hand, I could have actually waited and kept this level 7 and sent level 3 instead earlier with Pile Armed Dragon instead of sending level 7 to get Flash. And then what that would do is that would allow me to be able to get the effect of level 3 to draw the card plus the effect of level 7 on that discard effect. So I just did not do that. I didn't think that far ahead, but you can do that. That is an option. That way you can get the most value out of these cards, because now this will be a free discard or a discard for nothing. So right here I go Link Spider. Now you have to go Link Spider before this one because you need 2 monsters with different names. Now you can just pretty much make both Link Spiders if you wanted to right away, but I just do one at a time. So Link Spider. And then Barricade Blower Blocker with the Link Spider plus one of the tokens. And then make sure you activate the effect regardless of what it's doing. Just activate the effect anyways. You're going to have to discard something. It's okay. It's not the end all be all. You're going to activate. All you're doing is using that to trigger Dagda. Now if you can't activate that, you can't get your Dagda effect activated, you can use Flash like I said before, but we're just going to use that to trigger Dagda. That sets your sight. This is going to do absolutely nothing at all, but it's still fine. It's okay. Then, of course, Link Spider with this card. And now you've already gotten this effect. You don't want to go immediately into Aurora Dun. Instead, you want to go into Predator Plant Verde Anaconda with the Link Spider. Now, the reason why you have to do that, go Link Spider right here, is because this card uses 2 effect monsters. That's why you need 2 Link Spiders. So the Link Spiders are important on this particular deck. You need at least 2. Go Dagda plus the Link Spider into Predator Plant Verde Anaconda. And then you're going to use this machine plus these 2 machine, link 2 machine right here to go into, don't activate Predator Plant Verde Anaconda because you will lock yourself out. It's all about knowing how to make these plays and play around stuff to keep from locking yourself out. Then you're going to go Aurora Dun. Activate Aurora Dun, and make sure before you activate this Aurora Dun that you have made all the other plays as far as linking that you would want to do. So if you were going to go IP Masquerader for some reason, make sure you had done that before. Alright, so then once you get these tokens out, you're going to activate Aurora Dun, go to second effect, activate that effect, tributing the Aurora Dun plus this card. Now that is important that you do trigger the Aurora Dun, so that way you can get 3 tokens instead of 2, because otherwise the Barricade Board blocker would be 2, the Dagda would be 2, Link Spider is 1. So, and then also if you do just so happen to need to go into access code talker later, you have a wind, a dark, a light, a earth, link monster all engraved, so you can use all of that, banish all of that to just continuously pop cards on the field. So just keep that in mind. It's another good reason why I use the way that I make these plays to basically do what I'm doing. Do not activate this card's effect. This will lock you into wind monsters, which we don't want to do. We're going to go into Cupid Pitch with this card. Cupid Pitch is going to activate. We're going to use the effect to increase the level of a monster. It'll go to level 5. That makes the ability to be able to go into a level 8 play. From there, in attack position. In attack position, don't do what I just did. Activate this card right here. It's going to boost the attack of this card. So make sure you put this in attack position. Don't do what I just did, but it's okay. Then we can add Nemesis Corridor. Don't add Denier. That would be dumb. Add Nemesis Corridor. And make sure when you're pitching cards, make sure you're not pitching your DPE cards to the graveyard. That's another thing. Don't pitch the cards that you need for DPE to the graveyard. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to pop the site. So just make sure you're doing that. Then you can activate Nemesis Corridor. It'll unbanish something. Doesn't matter what you unbanish. I usually just unbanish level 5 maybe, because the search effect for level 7 is kind of unnecessary. So 5 or 7, either one, doesn't really matter. Summon this card onto the field. And then of course that is a 1 card Colossus. Pretty sure y'all all know about that by now. Put this into defense. If it's turn 1, just put it into defense. I like to put it into attack because I just do not care, but defense is fine, because then that way if they break your board and this is the only card left on field, they can attack into it once. It'll basically activate, and this card will actually protect it, because the thunders that are in the graveyard can act as protection for this card. So it can protect it for 1 pop. So if they activate Raigeki after you've used your Omni Negate, this card will still be on the field. Then lastly, the last thing that we would do, you can activate this if you wanted to, but it would just be a useless body, a sitting duck, if you do that. So I'm going to activate Predator Plant Verde Anaconda, Fusion Destiny, to bring out DPE. And that's the inboard. Super, super, super consistent. As you guys saw, I literally just showed the videos, went straight into this, played it, did it like it was nothing. Super consistent deck. You almost never brick with this deck. It almost bricked with this particular hand, but if you make it the way I showed you guys, using all the Dragon Ruler engines, it's even more consistent than this. I guarantee it. In my turn, and then on my opponent's turn, this effect isn't going to do anything. It's not going to add anything. Look, I can activate its effect. It's not going to add anything. Doesn't do anything. So basically it's just useless effect. If you have a field spell, then yeah, it'll add the field spell from the graveyard, but it's basically just there just to trigger off the scythe. Or the Dagda, I mean. So during my opponent's draw phase, I can basically pop Anaconda, so then that way they don't just start beating over stuff, and then pop the scythe. Or you could pop the DPE if you wanted to, but I just don't. Doesn't matter if you put this into attack or defense. I just put it into attack because why not? Has more attack, but you can put it into defense if you want to. Doesn't matter if it gets destroyed, you're only using the effect once. And then of course now he is going to draw 2 cards. Should I negate that? Probably not. I don't care. Can't add anything to hand. All he can do is, I mean, this is solo mode, so all he can do is just set that card, set a couple back rows. DP will get destroyed. Summon DP onto the field. And this is where like the follow-up stuff kind of happens. So I got the Dragon Rulers. Of course I'm not going to activate that because it really doesn't do much. Well, I can't activate it, but I'm not going to summon this onto the field because it really doesn't do much for me right here. But what I can do is activate the Denier right here. Put this onto the field. Put this into attack position. And I can go IP Masquerena right here with these 2 cards. I can activate Tempest. Tempest can basically banish 2 cards to summon itself onto the field. So I can go Galaxy Tomahawk. This card has no more use for me, and this card doesn't have any more use. I don't want to use this one because that is my protection for Colossus. To put this card onto the field. Now this is where holding on to this card was kind of good for me because now I can activate it, and this is why I wanted to search Flash anyways. So I can go into level 3 right here, and then if I want to, which is what I'm actually going to do, activate, I'll go IP Masquerena plus this card right here because it's the weaker version of it. I don't really care that I have it or not. Unicorn. I'm going to discard this card because I don't really need it. Spin this back. Remove from play 1 card. Of course, I'm not going to let that go through. I'm going to negate that. Spin back the other card back to the deck. And then we are going for game, my friends. Access code talker plus the Dragon Ruler. Hopefully that showed how the counters work as well. 3 negates, 3 Omni negates, but they're once per turn though. So then, now we can pop this card with DPE if we want to. We can pop it with Thunder Dragon. I mean with Access Code Talker. This is still the no ad, and then the 2 Omni negates. Still got 2 hand traps in hand. So I'm going to activate Access Code Talker. Look how many cards we got to banish. This is super, consistent, super easy to do, super easy to get to. You have so much access to follow up. If I had made the plays and wanted to go into this, I could have used Arm Dragon Flash on my opponent's turn to actually trigger off the Dagda. I just didn't want to showcase that line. But that would have basically given me two monsters to be able to go into IP Masquerena on my opponent's turn anyways. I didn't want to showcase that particular line for one reason. I wanted to show the most consistent way to actually do this combo. But that is a way to do it. You could trigger off the Dagda, and that would prevent you from having to go into Barricade War Blocker and discarding another card. Also, for the other card to go into IP Masquerena, I could have literally just normal summoned out something that was in my hand. Max C potentially, just normal that Max C. I did have Max C in hand, so I could have normal Max C, used the flash to trigger off the effect, and then just went into it like that. So just chose not to do that. And then I still could have just summoned out Barricade War Blocker to just basically link climb and have more material that I can pitch to continue to make banishes. So I'm just going to pitch Link Spider right here to destroy, and then that's pretty much game. Easy, easy, easy claps. Super consistent. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a long one, but hopefully I explained everything well. Hopefully it's appreciated as well. So GG's.